What does the pianoforte, puffy sleeves, hot air balloons, and late night carriage rendezvous have in common? Let's just say it's something I was not quite expecting. Cheerio, everyone. This is D Movieman, fellow cinephile, popcorn addict, and emerging film critic, coming to you with reliable recaps, reviews, and reactions. And today, of course, I'm coming to you all with another episode of... Okay. So, this should have been me coming to you all with another episode of Bridgerton, discussing the season premiere and recapping the first 4 episodes of this 2-part season. But you know what? All I can say is I tried. I watched this season, fairly excited, and, watched the first episode. I'm like, okay, cool, and let's see what's going from here, and watch the second episode. Watched the third episode. Got to the 4th episode. What's happening here? I am confusion. Like, can someone please help me out? I just think that this show is slowly but surely losing the plot. And that is unfortunate, because there is just something, like I said, so unique and fun about what Bridgerton is doing as far as the dynamic of its characters and what it means as far as English society. We're talking about, the Regency era, all of that. There's so much to discuss. There's so much to get into. And then, of course, the book series, of course, by Julia Quinn. We have 8 different novels exploring a different member of the Bridgerton family. So that's plenty of content, storylines. There's so much to explore. Yet, and still, we are now getting into this really weird space where I don't know if it's the writers, I don't know if it's the showrunner and producer, because I know that Chris Van Dusen has stepped away. I'm not quite sure what's going on. Like I said, I watched these episodes and I went about making my notes, and I just kind of kept going, and I just kept getting stuck. I was just like, what is there to say? And let's be clear, there still are enjoyable aspects of this season, but it feels so lost as far as the direction and the story progression and the character development. So let me just say that still, I believe that structurally, season 1 was the best season from the standpoint of developing everything. Of course, it was a little bit easier. It was the season that started it all, and it is a season that was able to be created and be produced and go through the whole creative process of production prior to the Ponderosa, as I always call it. Season 2 had to contend with that and a whole lot more. So I understand that there have been struggles, there have been a lot of changes. We probably would have been in a very different place with this series had a lot of those things not happened. But I just feel like season 1 did such an unexpected job, because I honestly thought when they showed Simon / the Duke of Hastings and Daphne, I was just like, I'm not seeing it. Like, how is this supposed to work? I don't know how these characters could have chemistry. I like the idea of what they were doing, especially when it comes to the trap that they set at the end of episode 1. But I was just like, what's I don't know. I don't know how I can buy into this epic love story between the two. Well, the thing is, the writers did a really great job of allowing us to see the genuine development of their love story. And the fact that there were a lot of, funny, quirky moments between the two, as well as some very poignant moments where you understand more about their motivations, their background. The Duke of Hastings and what he's been through, Simon, that in itself was wow. But then what Daphne begins to understand about him, her conflicts within her family, within, like there's a lot that's going on. And it was just, man, there was just something about it that just kind of kept me on my toes, right? So then moving on to season 2, although Kate and Anthony technically had a much better story to work with in a way, because I am a big enemies to lovers fan. I know it's a trope that some people don't care for, but I do. I sometimes think that that's the only way I'm going to end up in a relationship. I'm being very extra in that regard, but I was excited to see how that was going to play out. And for the most part, it was really enjoyable. However, there were a lot of missed opportunities as far as rounding those characters out. And we missed out on the full appreciation for those characters coming together, understanding what they've been through, developing more of that, seeing, it wasn't quite there. And even in my recaps for season 2, you can see where I'm just like, okay, there's too much heavy breathing. There's too much, like, I get it. Yes. We're hot for each other, okay? But can we get some substance? You know what I'm saying? And season 2 for me was definitely missing the substance. And even more so because we had these very goofy subplots. I just think there were choices made from a storytelling perspective that did not serve that season at all. I enjoyed a lot of aspects of it, but by the time we got to the end, I was just like, this was not satisfying. So I hoped, although I was iffy once I heard that we were going to switch the order and we weren't going to see Benedict and his story play out, we were going to instead see Penelope and Colin. I was like, we'll see. And the thing is, the idea of them growing closer and getting to a better place, especially with what Penelope discovered as far as Colin trash talking her to his friends, like that was a good foundation. It's like, okay, how are we going to get to this point to where it's like, okay, we actually are growing closer and we're getting into a better place? I was intrigued to see that. The thing is, with the novels, obviously the writers are remixing things, because there are plenty of things from the first 2 books that have not necessarily translated into the series outside of a few key moments and important developments. It's been like, okay, we're kind of mixing this up and we're kind of doing what we want to do, which is okay. I understand with adaptation, there are going to naturally be changes. I am now seeing that once again. We've seen it with Game of Thrones, we've seen it with True Blood, and plenty of other book to series, book to film adaptations, where it's like when you start really veering off script from what the original novel has established, things start getting dicey. And I can see where the series is now suffering the consequences of that. I like the idea that we are trying to heighten the drama between Eloise and Penelope by bringing Cressida into the mix and trying to develop her character a little bit more, because say what you want about Cressida, she is a very effective antagonist for this series, and I'm here for seeing her expand a little bit and develop, evolve. Puffy sleeves and all. Like, I could swear that with each passing scene, her sleeves got bigger and bigger and bigger. I was just like, all right, costume designers are not playing with this character. That took me out. I do like the fact that they're trying to give Violet more of a story outside of just being, the grieving widow and the mother worrying over her children. I was hoping at some point they would give her a little bit of something to do, and I love the fact that they are trying to introduce a new potential love interest for her. I wasn't expecting the love interest they brought along. Didn't expect said love interest to be related to Lady Danbury, but if anyone has seen Queen Charlotte, then it's kind of like poetic justice. So I was like, well, that's a mess. I'm also wondering if they're ever going to circle back around to the conversation that they were going to have at the end of Queen Charlotte. So I'm wondering how that's going to play out. So like there are aspects of this season that are interesting. I love seeing Penelope get her much needed glow up. You know what I'm saying? Like there's always the main character's story arc glow up, and I'm here for that. It's happened, pretty much every season. Well, at least with season 2 and season 3, obviously Daphne and Simon were good to go from the beginning. But, Anthony, he's had his moment. Colin is having his moment. Bare chest, exposed pecs and nips and all. Switching up the hair, and Penelope is doing the same. We are finally getting her out of those hideous looking frocks and the clumsy hairdos, and we're allowing that character to breathe and have some maturity. But I just don't like the optics of what they are doing with Penelope. It's just really messed up to me. And I don't know if that's the intention or not. Maybe it's unintended, but I just don't like this idea that I understand how society functions when it comes to weight. However, I also recognize that the perception of weight has definitely changed throughout the years, and depending on what culture and society you're talking about. Because in many societies, robust women were praised and appreciated because it's like you got money, you are living high on the hog, you have plenty of food to eat, childbearing, you're womanly and feminine. Like there are a lot of things that played into a positive perception of weight. And then of course we get into these years where it's like thin is in, and then it's been a mess, right? So I get that when it comes to people who are larger, and it doesn't help in Penelope's case because she already feels like a wallflower. She kind of feels like a little bit of an outcast. She doesn't really fit in, even in her own family. She's just kind of like, okay. I understand that she is still trying to discover her identity, and she is trying to carve out an identity outside of Lady Whistledown, because that, in a sense, has become the voice that she doesn't have in real life. But I just think the way that they have constructed her and Colin's relationship is absolute BS. And it is so poorly done, in my opinion. It's just like... and this is exactly why I struggled to try to do recaps for this, because it's just like I'm gonna be ranting the whole time. If we're going to push forward with it, the whole idea should be about us understanding, of course, how Colin and Penelope get to the point where they see each other with different eyes, how their love story evolves and progresses. And the biggest problem with that for me is jumping ahead this way to explore that love story when neither of those characters have really matured makes no sense. We have Colin jumping in and out of the bed every other episode, getting it in at brothels with women of the night, if you will. But then we're also supposed to believe that he's in a position where he can embrace a relationship with Penelope. And then the fact that Penelope basically has to beg for a kiss because I might die tomorrow. The fact that even though she gets all gussied up and, she's, changed her look up, she still can't find a man, and she still can't function and have suitors because she can't speak properly and she's so awkward. And then by the time we get to the carriage sequence, which is funny because I actually was here for that scene, it's kind of like, okay. Like, yes. Taking each other for a ride while you're already taking a ride. It's like... And especially when they pulled up and it was like, wait a minute. That was actually hilarious to me. And then the way they ended that episode was like, whoa. But we did not earn that moment. It would have been a really great moment if we had earned it, but we didn't. It just felt like everything felt rushed and sped up, and I felt like there was no real understanding of these characters and their relationship? Where is the buildup? Where is the development? Or even if we could see a flashback where Colin and Penelope met for the first time and we see why she fell for him in the first place. There was a waste opportunity with the journal and the fact that they had a bit of a bonding moment over that, but then they never come back to that. Penelope is a writer. Colin is writing. Surely you can explore that. Do we? No. And then what makes it worse is finding out certain aspects, which I also was aware of with season 1 and season 2, but some of the changes made for season 3 from the book was definitely not to its benefit. In the book, which is called Romancing Mr. Bridgerton, we have a whole subplot where Lady Danbury is taking Penelope under her wing. And considering how we've seen that happen with Kate, and I want to say a little bit with Daphne the first season, I was just like, that would have been a perfect opportunity. And we know how Lady Danbury is, and it would have been a really fun and interesting dynamic to see because Lady Danbury is extremely outspoken. She doesn't really care what anybody thinks. And she is the complete antithesis of Penelope. So then seeing what their relationship would be and the unlikely friendship that they strike up would have been great, but no, we don't get that. Another issue is that by not having Benedict already in his ideal love story, it feels like he's just blowing in the wind. You know, like he has nothing to do. Now he's having a bunch of flings again, and it's just like, what is the purpose of this character? And I enjoy Benedict. I really, really do. I think the actor is solid. I think the character is, funny and quirky. I'm not mad at the character, but I don't like what they're doing with him. I don't. It's just kind of, and I was already annoyed last season because it's just like, what are y'all doing? I don't like this. And I would say probably the biggest issue is that at this point in the book, Colin and Penelope are finally coming together after a decade. Like, this is after a significant amount of time, and other things have developed with Colin's other siblings, obviously. But now they're having to see each other with new eyes. Like, they have grown, they have gotten older and wiser, and the way they see the world, the way they see this society and everything is very, very different. But the thing is, this is only the third season or third year, however you want to call it, and these characters are not in a position to have a mature relationship or a mature understanding of each other. And then the transition in the show from, the kiss, all of a sudden does its magic. It's true love's kiss that conquers all. I was like, oh, you are not going to tell me that after showing Colin body rocking, knocking the boots with all of these different women in all of these random places, that this is the thing that does him in. I was just like, no. I'm sorry. It's not working for me. And here's the thing. There's room to grow. There's still 4 episodes left. Netflix decided, hey, we're going to get some extra money out of y'all. It's the last thing we do. So they're like, you ain't going to binge this whole season. Oh, sorry. We going to get that extra coin out of you one way or another. So I am intrigued to still see what happens because the preview of the last half looks interesting, but the dynamic, the storytelling, like all that is falling short, and this series deserves so much more. And I realize now that in order to be fully satisfied, I might have to add the Bridgerton books to my rotation and maybe get a little bit more satisfaction and see how things play out there. I'm sure there are some things that the series really does improve upon, but as far as Colin and Penelope, surely the book is doing a much better job because this is just... I might also add that you would think with all of these changes they're making from the book to the series that someone would have thought that maybe that whole thing that happened with Daphne and Simon in their story maybe could have been remixed. You can make all these random changes, but that's the one thing you think, yeah, let's keep that in here. Absolutely not. So yeah, I ended up doing a whole lot of chit-chatting, but I just had to explain that for me, when I recap something and when I really devote my time to something, I want there to still be something I can invest myself in. And I just feel like this season is not cutting it. And I hope that if we're going to continue on with the adaptation of these novels, that we got to figure out another way to do this, because then once this story is over, then how does Colin and Penelope then carry over to the next season? Somebody ain't doing the math right. Okay, somebody's not thinking this all the way through. And again, this series deserves a lot more. I understand it's not everyone's cup of tea. Get it? Tea? Yeah. I understand it's not to everyone's taste, but it definitely deserves a lot more. And given the framework and the foundation they have with the books, they definitely have a lot of opportunities that they are wasting. And I am hoping for better, but I don't know if we're going to get it. We'll see. So, once again, this is D, Movieman, signing off, and I'll see you with the movie.